Hello guys, before we get to the actual video, I'd like to just quickly set it up. This was part of our 24-hour charity live stream for Child's Play. If you would like to donate or find out more about Child's Play, we'll include a link in the description below. We'll also throw in links to our social media accounts so you can follow everyone who is involved with this. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and start the video. Okay, hello.
Hi.
Hey, you're back.
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing good, Chatted some obscure games that no one has ever heard of.
That's cool.
And we're going to be now talking about, I guess, some interviewing you, Liam Robertson of Unseen64 and Did You Know Gaming, as well as you've written for many other places.
Yeah.
As well, Nintendo World Report. I think you did some stuff there.
Yeah, more for Nintendo Life, but I did do a couple of things for NWR back in the day.
Yeah. So we're going to be just talking about how this all came to be and cancelled games and many various other things. So
Alright, cool.
I don't know where Ollie is, but we can start this in just a sec.
Alright, cool. Are we live on the Twitch yet?
Yep, we're live on Twitch.
Hey Twitch, what's up?
If anyone has any questions, if we get time, we'll just put them in the Twitch chat and we'll make sure.
Yeah, go on, ask me why I lie about everything. Why did you lie about Shovel Knight, Liam? How long will it take them?
People don't still email you about that, do they? Or message you about that?
No, I just get people. What tends to happen nowadays is just I get people will say that I said things that I didn't, and people misremember the things that I've said. Like I had someone today said that absolutely made something up about Skylanders and attributed it to me, and I was like, what? I never said that. I never said that at all. And yeah, like people have this idea that I said that the Skylanders TV show was going to be cancelled because I just kind of offhandedly mentioned it in my video about the 2017 game getting cancelled. So I get it's constantly shit like that. It's like people trying to be people trying to like point out where I've tripped up or whatever. And we all make mistakes, but I get a lot of people just making shit up like that. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I can imagine it being a huge pain sometimes, especially because they ignore the stuff that you did do and that went well, and just go for the stuff you make up.
I've always got something cooking, I've always got some new story or whatever, and I'm always on new sites. You always see my videos everywhere nowadays. I've got more stuff coming up in the months to come, but that stuff is all immediately forgotten, so they can talk about focusing on this one thing. But whatever, I shouldn't complain. I am pretty lucky to be able to do this. I've been given a good opportunity in that, but I don't know. I just like to complain.
Well, why don't we? That's a good way to segue into this. So why don't you tell us how did you become so fascinated with the idea with these unreleased games? Like, how did this essentially this hobby, this interest come about and motivate you to begin your research and reaching out and asking people?
That's an interesting question. I guess console games are interesting because they're not something that you are it's not knowledge you really are given when you're younger and you're just playing games more casually. Console games are not something that occurs to you that they exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is something that you learn about when you really get into the niche of things. Like you don't really understand how games are made when you're younger, and you've got no grasp of this process that many of them aren't released. I think from what I remember, my kind of fascination with it began around the GameCube era because I remember I have a pretty distinct memory of when I was younger getting my GameCube and like putting a pre-order down and getting in return from like a retail store here in the UK, I got like a VHS tape with like a reel of all the games that were expected to come out on the GameCube, and he had stuff on there like the Space World Zelda demo, and you had Donkey Kong Racing, and just a bunch of games like Mario 128 or whatever that's called. A bunch of things that were either tech demos that were never intended to come out, or you had games like Donkey Kong Racing that were cancelled and whatever. And when you're little and you don't really know how the game industry works, you wonder, it sticks with you, where do these games go? And so I guess like a bit later in life, I think it was probably when I was about like 14 or 15, I came across Unseen 64. I can't really remember. It was a while ago. It was when I was still at school. And I remember I guess I just Googled around about those games, and I came across it, and I was just in love with this really well done archive, populated with answers about these games I'd wondered about for years, and it was great to see the footage again and everything, and it made me so happy that someone was preserving that, and there were people out there researching this stuff, and I started doing videos about them with Unseen 64 back in the day. It was a long time ago, and most of those videos are gone now because they're rubbish. But over time, I sort of self-taught myself to, how to get the answers, and I learned a bit from some of the people who work at Unseen 64, like Luca, the guy who runs it, taught me a thing or two, and I just decided there are some games that I wanted to find out the answers behind why they were never released, like Project Hammer and stuff like that. Stuff that had fascinated me growing up, and I decided I wanted to do something about it and get involved, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Okay. So, are there any games out there, any cancelled unreleased games that you know about that you'd like to know more about and haven't had the option, whether it because of a language barrier or time, or there aren't any sources available?
Yeah, there's a lot. I could like sit here and list them forever, but one big issue which you mentioned is the language barrier, because I mostly focused on Western stuff because English is my only language, unfortunately. I haven't had time to learn Japanese or whatever, and there's nobody on the Unseen 64 staff that does. I do have some friends that do, who can translate this and that for me, but I like to do things pretty independently, and so I'm cut off from a bunch of games that I get asked about. I get asked, can you go and like talk to the Cosmic Walker guys? I don't know if you remember that game. That is a pretty obscure reference, actually.
No, I don't know that game at all.
that was like this really ambitious, I believe, first party Wii game where you are like an astronaut in space. Okay. And they showed it once during like a reel for like 10 seconds, and then it disappeared forever, and we never found out what happened to it.
So, I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Do you?
Okay. Yeah, by the way. Aye, sorry, I'm late.
Aye. Yeah. Hey. So there are games like that. A big one for me has always been Marionette. Do any of you guys remember that?
Marionette. It kind of rings a bell. Like I may have seen it in a list of games, but
right. So Marionette, for those who don't know, and I think most people probably won't remember it because this is pretty obscure. In about 2004, something called Marionette cropped up on like a release list for GameCube games, and then that was it. It just disappeared. They never announced it. It was seemingly some kind of like internal error because the game was never, I think, in full production. But this was a Miyamoto-led project where you controlled basically a puppet version of Mario, and it was supposed to be a late GameCube game, and this was like an original, very experimental project from Miyamoto, a bit of a personal project for him, and it just never came together for some reason. I think Either the controls weren't working or something like that. Just the concept didn't materialize in quite the way he had hoped, and so they shut it down. There were some rumors they might bring it back on the Wii, but it was never shown. He's only spoken about it once publicly. Nobody's really like went to him and asked him what it was really about. We just know it was about puppeteering, and you know, I've heard it did have Mario in it. That shouldn't be any surprise because it's called Marionette. but you know that is how little we know about that, and I'd love to learn more about that personally. If I ever met Miyamoto and I was able to, I'd definitely quiz him about that.
Well, he likes his marionettes, doesn't he? He likes the Super Mario Nation style animation, doesn't he? So
yeah, sure.
Yeah. No.
It sounds like it could have been interesting.
Yeah. So then, actually, continuing on the topic of Miyamoto, Nintendo recently announced Star Fox 2, cancelled never before release game, is finally getting a re-release. And so I was curious, as someone who looks into all these games, how was your reaction to this? Because this isn't like a game that just wasn't translated. This is a game that was never released anywhere.
Yeah, there'd been versions of it, like prototypes, near finished prototypes floating around, but this is the first time we get a full, like, the finished game out there, the final ROM, and that makes me very happy, especially from like a preservation standpoint. I'm very glad that that game is finally seen the light of day. I wasn't surprised as such. I always thought Nintendo was going to do this. I remember back in like 2006 or whenever it was when they announced the Virtual Console, I remember thinking, oh, so that's when they're going to drop Star Fox 2, because they had it like just sitting in the back burner. You got to know it was finished. It was finished, and they just didn't release it because of it was the end of the Super Nintendo era, and they wanted to go all in on Star Fox 64 and the Nintendo 64 and push that, so they didn't release it, and it was purely marketing for the most part that they didn't release it. And then it appears there were some legal issues got in the way, apparently, to do with the technology, the graphics technology or something like that, related to this. But anyway, to get back to what you're saying, I'm very happy, but not necessarily surprised. I always thought they would pull the trigger on this eventually. It's an easy win for them, They had this on the back burner for a long time, and I'm glad that they finally put it out there. And I'm glad that they found an interesting venue through which they could release this and make a big deal of it by releasing this Super Nintendo Mini. I think that's the perfect venue for it. It's going to be great, and I'm definitely going to be playing it.
Okay, all right. And they kind of answered like all my questions about this. That was going to ask you about stuff. It's all in one, so you did pretty well. So I guess if there was one unreleased game that you do know about, it doesn't have to be from Nintendo, that you would want to see finally get out there officially, which game would it be and why?
Are we like talking like finished games?
Ooh. I would say yes. Games like Star Fox 2, games that you know that were finished, or at least
maybe
in a state where they could be released publicly, and
at least something where there was a physical, it wasn't just a name on a list,
Yeah, there are some. I think the big one for me, and I guess this is a bit of a boring one, but it always irks me that this has never been released, since it is absolutely finished, ready to go. And it's the Wii kind of compilation of the Star Wars Rogue Leaders games.
Oh yeah.
The Rogue Squadron games rather, which is called Star Wars Rogue Leaders Wii, and this was this really cool compilation of Factor 5 Star Wars Rogue Squadron games for the GameCube and Nintendo 64, and it was all redone with it had like a Motion Plus lightsaber dual mode that looked crazy, and it had lots of different characters. They added new ships. They added a ton of different control methods, like you would not even begin to fucking imagine. Like they even added like balance board support, so you could pretend you're in an X-wing and you use the balance board to control the acceleration of the X-wing. That is crazy. And if you look at like there is a chart out there. I actually did a video on this, by the way. If you go check this out, if you look up like I think it's called cancelled Star Wars games you've never heard of or something like that. I show like a chart of all their control methods that they have for this game, and it's just ridiculous. They did everything possible. You could even play with just one Wii remote and point it at the screen and just use the pointer. They did anything that they could. They pushed it to the limits. Factor 5 did. So that game is sitting finished in the Disney vaults. It will probably never come out because the generation of the Wii is past now, and but it always could. It always could come out. It's there. Julian Egbrecht, the former CEO of Factor 5, he has a copy of it. There are people out there, but it will never leak, I don't think, or it will be a very long time before it does, because other than Disney, I know like 2 people who have a copy of this, and they are never going to release it, I'm afraid. So yeah, that would get my vote personally, because I'm a huge fan of those games, and it looked like an incredible kind of remastering of it. And yeah, it just sucks that it's there, it's finished, and nobody's making any money off it. It's gonna sit there and rot, and I hope it gets preserved properly, and one day it leaks out in like 50 years or whatever. I don't care.
Fair. All right, then. Next question I have down is, so you said you worked with Unseen 64 and stuff, and that's how you kind of got into this. But now you're working also with Did You Know Gaming. You're doing collaborations with them. So
yeah,
how did that come about? Like, did they contact you? Did you contact them?
God, it's a bit of a weird story. Well, it's not that interesting, to be honest. But basically, I had been talking to some Sonic Team people, and I wanted to do a video about Sonic Adventure 2. And I've been talking to, like, Takashi Iizuka, and we were like going through all these like old rumors about Sonic Adventure 2. And then Did You Know Gaming did a video about Sonic Adventure 2, and I checked it out, and I realized, oh, there's a few things that are kind of inconsistent with what Sonic Team people have told me. And I maybe shouldn't have done this. I feel a bit dickish about this in retrospect, but I remember I replied to their video on Twitter, and I like pointed out the things that they kind of got wrong. Like there's a bunch of like long-standing kind of false rumors about Sonic Adventure 2's development. Like there's this whole thing that there was going to be like multiple choices, and I remember there's this rumor about there being a scrap section of Sonic Adventure 2 where Sonic has to decide when he escapes the island that explodes, in the middle of the campaign. If you guys, there's this whole like long-standing rumor that there was supposed to be a submarine level where Sonic escapes in a submarine, and he has to decide. I don't know. The submarine starts sinking, and he has to decide if he's going to like try and salvage it or escape or whatever, and it's stuff like that. And apparently that's just not true at all. And they mentioned that in the video, and then I sort of like mansplained that to Did You Know Gaming on Twitter, and I after it I felt maybe I shouldn't have done that. That was a bit obnoxious. That was a bit kind of nerdy. But then Shane from Did You Know Gaming followed me like immediately, and he messaged me, and he's like, "Oh, I saw what you wrote. Do you want to? I started watching your videos. Do you want to put them on here? Do you want to be a part of Did You Know Gaming?" And I guess the rest is history. He just kind of offered me it like after that, which is I don't know. I don't have any tips for getting jobs, but try mansplaining on Twitter. Sometimes it works if you try to try to explain stuff to companies. No, don't do that. But I was pretty lucky, and that's kind of how that happened.
Okay, all right. So the next one then is so if there's something that you I guess we kind of covered this in the introduction, but if there was something that you wish more people would understand about your work, other than the fact that you aren't Unseen 64, which
Oh
I think
God,
happens
yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
What?
You wouldn't believe the variations. Like I've been called that. I've been told that that's my nickname. That it's just it's. I don't know how long is it going to take people to get it. You know, I even put my name in the videos now to try and kind of separate myself because I'm not a website. Anyway,
Right.
go on.
Yeah. So, if there's one that's the thing that you wanted more people to understand about your work, something that you think that kind of gets lost, or what would it be? What is it? I guess.
I'm not sure. I guess like one of the things that I'm kind of passionate about is that games are made by people and they're not cranked out by a big machine. They're not brought to us by storks. They are made by passionate, creative people who are humans, and I think some of the kind of the humanity I think that gets lost on a lot of people, and I hope what I've done with my videos, at least a little bit, is help to change that perception that game devs are people, and they they deserve an element of respect, certainly, because games, you know, I hope my videos have shown that games are fucking hard to make, and a lot of different things can go wrong. If you've watched my videos, you know, like the games go wrong at all different stages for many different reasons: legal, financial, creative, and I want people to respect game developers more and understand that these games come from people, and that, you know, creativity and console games, it's hard on people. It affects people emotionally, and yeah, you hear some horror stories like what happened with Scalebound is one example. I heard that put some strain on those guys. And yeah, I just want people to kind of realize that there is a humanity in game development that sometimes gets lost because we don't really get that much of an opportunity to see game developers talk candidly about the experience of game development, you know?
Yeah.
It's all the game development outside of GDC is very kind of PR driven. And you see them talk about, oh, we've got this great new open world feature and that kind of thing, and it's very advertising, and we rarely get a chance to see them talk passionately and openly and honestly and candidly. And yeah, I hope that people will respect game development more as an art and that kind of thing, and realize, yeah, there are people behind these games.
Okay. All right. So I got two more questions. The first is about a theoretical Smash for Switch. I was interested on what your opinion is now. Now that E3 has come and gone and the game wasn't shown off. And so it's obviously a lot of people have fallen back on the idea of it being a port. Some people still think it will be, and it'll just been pushed to next year.
Right.
Others think maybe it's been pushed for a new game.
I gotta say, I never expected to see it at E3. Never. Like, I don't think it's like terribly far along. I do think that it has started out as a Smash 4 port. Those were the rumors. I mean, you know, personally, I've not been too involved with those rumors myself. I know you guys heard some things. Nintendon, who was on earlier, he heard some things too. And the rumors are certainly prominent. I think that, yeah, it did start off as a Smash 4 port. I think that they're going to be bulking up that team. And I don't think Sakurai is going to be too involved with it this time. I think they are going to do like sort of like an expanded version of Smash 4. They're going to use that as the basis, and from there develop a bigger game, sort of like a slightly more iterative version of Smash than what we're used to. But I just think, you know, they can't take a step back from Smash 4. Smash 4 had so many characters in it, and I think they're going to use that as the basis for the next game and build around it. I don't know what you guys think, but that's kind of my experience, my kind of feelings about that, and it's mostly speculation.
Yeah,
But
I share those feelings as well. I think at this point it's more likely to be a Splatoon 2 sort of situation, maybe, where, you know,
right,
they started by porting over the original game with the intention of maybe it just being that, and then decided actually we have the time, let's add until it's now a new thing.
yeah. Smash Brothers is an event, you know.
Yeah.
It's a game that comes along once every generation, and they're not gonna blow that on just doing a lazy port. And I think Nintendo is also weary about creating this perception that the Switch is all ports because they've had a couple already. I think they were originally going to port Mario Maker over as well. I had heard from a few people that they'd seen just a version of pretty much the Wii U version running on the NX when they were calling it that, on the development hardware. And I get the impression that those kind of games that they'd originally toyed around with as ports, they are going to become full sequels. Like we'll see, maybe it's like a Mario Maker 2 in a year or two. Yeah, I do think Smash for Switch will absolutely happen in the form that I said it, probably in like a few years. I think we're still a ways off. They've got do you not agree? I don't think this is a game that comes out anytime soon.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think 2019 I think is a good year to try and have it, and that's also when Smash's 20th anniversary is going to be.
Right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that, but that would be a cool thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it plays a massive factor in it, but I could easily see Nintendo being like, oh, well, look, another anniversary game we can celebrate and get people hyped up over the year for.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. So my final question for you then are, what are your personal goals and plans for the future? Where do you see yourself and your channel and stuff going over the next, say, 5 years?
Well, I'm not really doing a lot with my channel anymore. I'm mostly focused on Did You Know Gaming stuff because that's you know, it's a much bigger audience. I really enjoy working with those guys. They've given me a lot of freedom to do whatever I want, and pretty much any idea I'll pitch to Shane, he'll be like, "Yep, go for it." And I've never been in a position like that before. So I'm really enjoying the creative freedom of it. I'm going to stick with them for as long as I can. I'm hoping that I can grow this into a full-time job. It's not my full-time job yet. It's just kind of like a part-time gig for me. I do have a day job, and it's nowhere near as interesting as this. I just like work in finance, but I'm hoping one day I'll get to such a point where I can just be doing videos all the time. I'm fortunate enough to, you know, I mean, I make a decent crust, but I'm not in this for the money. I'd love to be able to just do that for my living, to be able to just constantly be doing videos because it's what I love. I love talking to the game developers every day. It's my biggest passion in life, possibly, to get to talk to these people and learn about what happened to their games. And I'm so privileged to be able to talk to them. And we're at this age of communication where it's so easy to reach these people, and I'm talking to people who made games that I loved when I was younger, people at like Pseudo Interactive and Nintendo, and talking to like Julian Egbrecht from Factor 5, people who I admired like pretty much all my life from when I started playing video games, and even talking to some of the Sonic Team guys. That's like stuff that I never would have imagined happening, but it is, and I hope I can do that for as long as possible, and hopefully I'll be able to grow this into a full-time job at some point. But I'm pretty happy with where I am now, and I'm loving doing what I'm doing. So yeah, check out my stuff, and yeah, I've got a lot more on the way.
Okay, good, and thank you for coming on for this interview then.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
cool.
So I know you said it earlier, but once again, where can people find you at?
Yeah, I'm youtube.com/Liam R Productions, or you can get me on Twitter. I'm Dr_Cupcakes, Doctor the full word, or just like Google Liam Robertson and you'll find me. I'm everywhere. I've got my finger on a lot of different pies. I'm on Did You Know Gaming now, and I'm I do some like script editing for them as well. I work on the Did You Know Gaming videos themselves now, as well as doing my Unseen 64 work. But the Unseen 64 work is kind of my, my centerpiece thing. So go check out those videos. I'm always like uncovering new games, and I know you guys have a lot of like Nintendo fans, and I have some Nintendo stuff coming up in the next few months that people will definitely want to see, definitely want to learn about it. I've got some weird things to show you.
Okay, well, I look forward to that, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, you too, man.
And for everyone else, we're going to be taking a short break as we set up the next interview, which should be with the Ray Chase, the voice actor for Roy from Fire Emblem, and Noctis from Final
fuck,
Fantasy.
that's cool.
Yeah. So, and I also want to thank Ollie for being my co-host.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. It's been great.
4.5 hours almost.
Yeah.
So thank you for the support and for that, and you as well can go on and have the rest of your day now.
Yeah, cheers. You can find me at Minus World on Twitter or Minus World at UK. Lots of games, culture writing on there, lifestyle stuff, anything fashion, furniture, food. Go and have a look.
Okay. All right then. Until I get to speak to you both later, have a nice day.
All right. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.